Welcome to Quick Course Digest. Today, we're diving deep into the world of strategic professional communication. And look, this is way more than just talking or sending emails. It's a skill, a really powerful one, that can honestly make or break a project, a team, or even a whole company.
So let's start with the big question. What's the real difference here? Well, it's the gap between just making noise and actually making an impact. Communicating strategically means you're intentional, you're purposeful with every single word. This is a skill that doesn't just help you get by, it can literally define your entire career path.
You know, to build anything great, you first have to understand your tools. And in the professional world, our most important tool is communication. So let's pop the hood and see how this engine of all collaboration actually works.
At its heart is what we call organizational communication. I want you to think of this as the lifeblood of any group. It's that constant flow of ideas, of information, of feedback. That's what allows everyone from a tiny startup to a massive global corporation to actually function, to solve problems, and to come up with the next big thing. Now, our understanding of communication has really evolved over the years. We started with this very basic linear model. Think of it like a radio broadcast, just one way. Then we got a little smarter and moved to the interactional model, which is more like a walkie-talkie conversation with a little back and forth. But where we are today is the transactional model. This is like a busy, dynamic, face-to-face discussion. We're all sending and receiving signals at the same time, creating meaning together, right there in the moment. And that is the key to understanding modern teamwork. Okay, so to really get a grip on modern communication, we have to talk about how our view of the workplace itself has completely changed. This shift from seeing companies as cold machines to seeing them as living, breathing organisms, it changes absolutely everything about how we communicate.
Right, so back in the early days of the Industrial Revolution, thinkers like Frederick Taylor and Max Weber, they saw organizations as these perfectly engineered machines. And they were built for one thing and one thing only: efficiency. The structure was super rigid, the rules were crystal clear, and every single person was basically an interchangeable part, designed to do one specific job perfectly. But then, this happened. The Hawthorne experiments. It was a massive game changer. Researchers went into a factory, right? They thought they were going to figure out the perfect lighting for productivity. But what they found was productivity went up no matter what they did. Why? Simply because the workers felt seen, they felt valued. It was this huge aha moment that the human element, connection, attention, morale, was an incredibly powerful force.
And this slide just lays it all out, the total shift in thinking. We moved from that rigid command and control machine view to the organism view. In this modern way of thinking, an organization is a living system. All the parts depend on each other, and things like motivation and culture, well, they're the keys to keeping it healthy and growing. The big takeaway here? You can't just order your way to innovation. You have to cultivate it. So now that we have this modern, human-centered understanding, how do we actually communicate with purpose? Well, we stop just talking and we start planning. We create a strategic blueprint, a game plan for success.
This 5-step process, this is the absolute core of strategic communication. It's a deliberate framework that takes something simple, like sending an email, and turns it into a powerful tool for achieving a very specific, measurable goal, whether that's boosting your team's morale or launching a brand new product. And step 2, knowing your audience, is absolutely crucial. You can't just blast a message out into the world and hope for the best. We use what's called audience segmentation. We break down big groups based on demographics, where they live, what they believe, their psychographics, and how they get their information. This lets us tailor a message so it really lands and has the biggest impact possible. Now, when you're actually crafting that message, there's a classic framework you can lean on called IDA. It's so effective. First, you have to grab their attention. Then, you got to build their interest. From there, you create a real sense of desire for your idea. And finally, you have to give them a clear call to action. It's a powerful formula, and it works for a reason. All right, so theory's great, but let's see how this blueprint actually comes to life out in the real world, especially when the stakes are incredibly high and reputations are on the line. This is really strategic communication in its purest form. See, PR isn't about buying an ad. It's about earning trust and credibility.
The whole goal is to shape how the public sees you by building genuine relationships and encouraging positive, unpaid coverage. It's earned, not bought.
And just like our view of organizations, PR has evolved too. It started with one-way propaganda, what we call the press agency model. Then it moved to just getting basic facts out there. But the most effective models today are two-way conversations. The gold standard is the two-way symmetric model, where the organization and the public are in this balanced dialogue, trying to reach a mutual understanding. This isn't just about being nice. It's about building sustainable trust, which is the most valuable asset any company can have, period.
So, what's the ultimate test of any strategic communication plan? A crisis. This is where a company's true character is revealed and its entire future can literally hang in the balance.
And this is the gold standard for how to handle a crisis. Faced with an absolute nightmare, Johnson & Johnson didn't hide. They didn't deflect blame. They communicated with total transparency and compassion, and they took immediate, incredibly expensive action to protect the public. By doing that, they turned a potential corporate disaster into a legendary case study on how to do the right thing.
And this brings us to the single most important rule of crisis management. Rule number 1 is this: communicate. In a crisis, silence is your absolute worst enemy. An information vacuum will always be filled with rumors and fear. The only way you can manage the story and keep people's trust is through early, honest, and continuous communication.
Okay, finally, let's talk about the foundation, the thing that underpins all effective communication. And that's the ethical compass that has to guide every single decision we make. And let's be clear, violating these ethical principles isn't just bad form. It can be absolutely catastrophic. It can obliterate public trust, lead to huge legal problems, and cause permanent damage to a brand's reputation and its bottom line. Integrity isn't a nice-to-have, it's a necessity. Now, on the flip side, many of today's most respected companies actively build trust by embracing what we call corporate social responsibility. They actually weave ethical practices that benefit society right into their core business model. Everything from environmental initiatives to charitable giving. They're proving that you can do well by doing good. And that's really the key takeaway for this whole explainer. Strategic communication isn't just a bunch of tools and tactics. It's a form of power. So the real question is, how are you going to choose to use it? Hopefully wisely, truthfully, and for the benefit of everyone involved.